Hello, I'm Brad Phillips here for Puppy Steps Training. Today we're actually going to be doing a demo for North Star Goldens. This is Bart with me. So we did an 8-week boot camp with him, and this video is to show you some of the things that he's learned and where he's at progress-wise. So it's important for you to know that he's not finished. There's always going to be work to do. You're always training your dog, but he does have a solid foundation now. And so I'm going to teach you how to continue with that, how to be consistent, and how to go through each one of these commands and manners so that you can have success. So we're going to start out by showing you the manners that we've taught him, then I'll show you his obedience commands, we'll talk about house and crate training, and then show you his leash work. So the first thing we're going to do, first part of his manners, is I'm going to let him out of the crate. So anytime he comes out of the crate, he goes through a house door, I expect him to stay. This should be an automatic behavior, but it's important to remember that Bart right now is in this critical stage. He's still a puppy, but he's starting to enter this kind of teenage phase where he might test the water. So that's where consistency comes in. So if he were to break, I might simply close the door, lift up my leg. It wouldn't be unless he was really persistent on pushing his way up that I would actually tell him no. But it is important that I am consistent, and that's both with rewarding and correcting. So you will hear me use the word okay, that's our release word, when I let him out. He knows that when he hears that, he's released from a stay, but he's also done the behavior correctly, and so there's a reward coming. Okay, good boy, okay. Now, I'll show you the house door when we do go outside, but the next thing I want to show you is what we call his greeting. And so the greeting is basically a replacement behavior for jumping. And that's basically what he did here. He doesn't have to lay down, but it is important that he sits, and that way he's not jumping up on me. And he knows that I'm not going to give him any attention unless he's planted. If he's running around me or if he's jumping, I'm just going to ignore him. In fact, I'll turn my attention away from him until he does sit. So it does get him planted, he's not jumping, but it also gets his eye contact. And once you have his eye contact, you know that he's focused on you. Good boy, come here, come here. And so once again, when I call him over, I expect that greeting, that sit, instead of jumping. If he were to jump, we have established the command off, and I would tell him off and I expect him to get down. And that's if he jumped up on me, or if he jumped up on anything that you don't want him to. Tell him off and expect him to get down. That is one time that if I had a leash, which I will connect one right here, I would give him a leash correction, which is 2 pops on the leash. It doesn't have to be, full body jerking him back. It's more so to apply pressure and get his attention back on me. It's also important, if he was running at me and he was going to jump, it's important that you never step backwards. As soon as you step backwards, it turns into a game. He's going to be more inclined to jump. So instead, if you can step into him, restrict that space, and I would bring my knee up into his chest and block him, and then follow it up with the command off. Good boy, huh? So now for his mealtime manners. So when we feed him, I expect him to hold a sit stay. And so where he's already sitting there, I'll ask him to stay. No. Okay, good boy. And so you can see he started to break. I just told him no, and he knows that he was doing it wrong, so he's expected to sit and wait. We also spend a lot of time handling him when he eats, making sure that there's going to be no food aggression there. And that's really with everything. I want to make sure that I handle them so they're not aggressive or timid or anxious. These dogs sometimes do have a little bit of timidness with them. And so it is important that you spend that time handling and making sure that that bond secures and he trusts you. And he knows that you're the leader. And that's really why the food, having him do that sit stay and controlling his food is so important, because it shows him that you're the leader, that you're in charge. You tell him when he can eat and what he can eat, and that way he's going to build that trust for you and trust that you have everything under control. Oh, good boy. Now, we've also taught him to be very gentle with his mouth when he takes food. Come here. So if he was real anxious, I would just put it in the palm of my hand, and if he tried to lunge at it, I'd pull it back and say gently. But I expect him to be very cautious when taking it. I don't want him to bite my hand. That's also why I do give it to him in the palm of my hand versus my thumb and forefinger. Oh, good boy. Good boy. So toys are very important to dogs. He has a very high toy drive, loves to play, which is great. But I also like to use toys to prevent playful aggression, basically. A behavior that sometimes is confused with aggression, and it's more so when they're playing with kids. Kids are like the greatest thing to a dog. They run, they squeal, and it's so easy for him to just get a little carried away, knock him over, maybe even grab a pant leg. And so this toy can be a barrier. I always have my kids have a toy when they play with these bigger dogs, or really any of my puppies. And that way, if they ever get nervous, they can throw the toy, it'll divert the dog away, as well as he's going to go for the toy versus a pant leg. And he, like I said, he loves his toys, and we have taught him to drop it on command. Drop it. Good boy. Now, I'll show you that again, but I'll get him to stop before he goes onto the bed. There. Drop it. And I expect him to physically release that. I shouldn't have to try and pull it out of his mouth, which at all costs I try and avoid pulling it out of his mouth. If he had a hold of it and he didn't want to let go, I would just take it on both sides and hold it real firmly, and where he can't yank it around and play with it, it becomes a little less appealing and he's going to be more likely to drop it. If he didn't, I would just reach inside his mouth and I would press down on his tongue with my thumb, and he's going to open right up. Good boy. But of course the toys are also important just for the chewing fact, giving him something that he's allowed to chew on, because dogs, they're mouthy. Their mouth is like our hands. They like to touch and feel things with their mouth. And so they're going to have to chew. And so giving him adequate things to chew on is going to save you a lot of destroyed things. It's also important that he has something to do, because when a dog gets bored, that's when they go seek out something to do. And that's usually when you get those destructive behaviors like chewing, like digging, things like that. And so I do like to give him adequate things to chew on, but I also don't give him free access to things to chew on. I want to make sure that I can pick it up as soon as he's done, and that way it's still exciting when you bring it back out. He doesn't have this casual relationship with his toys where they're just always available, so they're not exciting anymore, and he wants to find something different. As well as just switching it up with textures and switching from a toy to a bully stick, maybe to a marrow bone, giving him different things. Oh, good boy. Let's see. So I believe that's it for our manners. Hopefully I didn't forget anything there. So now I'm going to show you his obedience commands. We're going to start with come and watch me. Those are our two most basic commands. Those are also some of your most important commands. The first one is just to get eye contact. Watch me. Okay, good boy. And just as simple as that, him looking up at me. It goes back to that same thing with the greeting. If you have his eye contact, you know you have 100% of his attention. And so you can do a lot of different things to distract him. I can even put the food out in front of his nose. Watch me. Okay, good boy. Now I'm going to ask for that eye contact. Very simple command, but it is a really useful command if you ever need him just to stop and look at you, whether you drop something on the floor you can't have or he's running around. And so I do like to keep that very, very positive. So the next one is a come command. To me, this is your most important command and one that you have to work on a lot. Bart, come! Good boy. When I ask for this command, I like to put myself in a position where I'm inviting. That's why I'll bend down. If he was ever hesitant, I might clap and run backwards, something like that, just to really engage him and make him really want to get to me. This come command, like I said, is one that you need to work on a lot. I would never let my dog off leash if I didn't know for sure that he's going to come to me. And a lot of that comes to building a relationship with him. And so there's a couple suggestions I have. One is don't overuse the command. If you don't need to use it, don't. Especially like if you're in the house, you can do something like, come here, something like that. He's going to get up and run to you. It's very enticing. But then outside, if you know that he's going to fail, like he's just super distracted, once again, don't use the command. Instead, if you can, just go up and grab him, put a leash on him, and go. That way you're not burning out that command. It's not overly casual. But, and that way when you really need the come command, it's in place. I also like to work on this command a lot on a long lead. Take him, let him get out there 20, 30 feet where he can just run around and be himself. And then every minute or two I'll call him to come. And when I call him, if he doesn't immediately turn around and come to me, that way I have control, I can reel him in. But really work on this command. It's also not a bad idea when you get, you know, these bigger retrievers that do just have this drive where they want to run and they want to play, is to call or condition them. That would be a suggestion I have moving forward. Oh boy, oh boy. So now I'm going to show you a couple hand signals. So the one for sit is just a scoop over the nose. Just that simple motion. Down, I'll take my hand flat and I'll take him to the ground. And then stay is a stop sign. And we do have both a sit and a down stay. Come here. Sit. Down. Stay. We can add a little bit of distraction here. No. And if he does try to move, I can just simply say no. But I do set that expectation for him. Okay, good boy. Okay. So Bart does have good stays, but I wouldn't be satisfied with them. I always try to work on those. Add what we call are the 3 Ds, and that's distance, duration, distraction. His sit stay is the one that probably needs the most work because he loves to be right next to you. And so if you do these short stays where you're close to him, he likes to try and scoot. Come here. I'm going to spin him around. Sit. Stay. Okay, good boy. And so just to show you some of those again, the sit is up over his nose, down, I'll take him down. Okay, good boy. And then if you were asking him to stay, it's that stop sign. Good boy. So now I'll show you his crate and his go to bed command. These don't necessarily have a hand signal, but he reads my body language more than anything. And so I like to put myself in a position where he can read that body language. So I can ask him, Bart, go to bed. No, go to bed. There you go. You can see sometimes when they hesitate like that, that was a lot my fault versus his. Okay, is because I usually use my right hand, and then when I use my left, it actually just threw him off a little bit. And so sometimes if he hesitates, you can adjust yourself before you adjust the dog. Go to bed. And I don't care what position he's in as long as all 4 paws are on the bed, and then he is expected to stay in total release. Okay, good boy. Okay. And then crate, I can just point, I can tap on the top, and then I'll give him the treat when he goes in, and once again he's expected to stay in total release. Okay. That command also gets burned quite often because if you only put him in the crate when you're going to lock him up for like the night or when you're leaving, he's going to quickly understand that and not want to go in because he feels like you're just going to leave. Okay, and so I like to work on that command a lot throughout the day. You walk past the crate, send him in a couple times just for a treat, let him go. Do it a couple times before you actually put him to bed, something like that. And then the last one we've taught him is a leave it command. We work on that a lot with our walks, but I can also use it with treats. If I drop one on the floor, I can ask him to leave it. Ask him to walk away. Good boy. And then we'll walk past again. Come on, leave it. Good boy. Now, we do teach him that leave it means leave it forever. And so I'm not going to give him that treat or ever let him pick it up off the ground after I've asked him to leave it. Because otherwise, when you're on a walk and maybe there's something dead on the side of the road, you ask him to leave it, he's going to think, well, if I just wait a little while, then I can go back and get it. And so leave it means leave it permanently. So that's it for our obedience commands that we've taught him. Now we're going to just talk about his crate training and his house training for a little bit. I'm going to give him a bully stick to chew on. Now, he's done really well in the crate. We've taught him to be comfortable in there. So he sleeps through the night. We usually put him to bed at 10, get him out about 6:30. So he's done really well there. He's also good to be in there for 3 to 4 hour blocks during the day. The only time that he should whine is if he needs to go to the bathroom. And sometimes when he will go home, he's going to go through this transition period. And he's going to be under a lot of stress, and so that would be the only time that I would see him whining to go to the bathroom, would be that first night or two. And that's just part way through the night. The other thing that you may see is when you take him home, if you put him in there and he immediately starts to whine, that's just because of that stress. He's uncomfortable, he's nervous, and he likes being near you. And so then when you put him away, he can't be near you anymore. But that is a behavior you have to ignore that first couple times. And that should be all that ever happens, is that first couple times. But if you don't ignore it, if you then feel bad and let him out, he's going to think that he can whine all the time to get out. So instead, I'll give him something to help comfort him, maybe a bully stick or a marrow bone. I might even drape a blanket over the front so it feels more den-like, because they are a den-dwelling animal. But he's really good in the crate. I would also use this crate a lot as you introduce him into your home and you go through the house training process. The crate is your number one asset. Because when you house train, you have to keep this 100% supervision. You can't ever let him escape your field of view. Otherwise, it's so easy for him to get confused where he is in a new place and then have an accident. And so if you can't keep that 100% supervision, put him in the crate. So we have taught Bart how to ring some bells. That's his outlet to tell us when he needs to go to the bathroom. And so he knows where the bells are here. He knows that they need to go to the bathroom. These are things you're going to have to reteach him at your house. And so in order to do that, I like to get a lot of repetitions in a short amount of time. So I'm actually going to walk you through this process. But first I'd like to explain it. So the first thing that I do is have him target the bells. I'll have him ring them out of my hand, make it light, make it fun. Once he's doing that consistently, I'll move over to the door, have him ring it like 4 or 5 times off the door. Then I'll take him out to the bathroom. If he goes, I'm going to be very positive, heavy rewards, tell him, okay, get outside, good boy. And then we'll come right back in. And even though if he just went, we're going to come right back in and have him ring the bells again, probably 2 or 3 times to get a treat, and then go back outside. And I'll do that at least 4 or 5 times. I want a lot of repetitions of him seeing where the bells are at, and that we're going outside to go to the bathroom, and that's it. And we're coming right back in, no play. After you do that exercise, then I want you to set a timer for every 30 minutes. Every 30 minutes, take him to the bell, take him outside to the bathroom. Do this for the first 24 hours, and then gradually bump it up. Here with my program, my puppies, I expect them to hold it for 2 hours without needing a break. I know that he can go longer, but the first 2 weeks I would not let him. 2 hour max, that way he's not having an accident. He's not even having an opportunity as an accident, because you're keeping 100% supervision and you're giving him adequate breaks. The other thing is just look for signs. If he starts sniffing real heavily, or if he starts spinning circles, or he just woke up, those are all things that prompt him to have to go to the bathroom. And so those are great opportunities just to get that out of the way, take him outside to go to the bathroom. And those are really useful repetitions. So I'll show you that real quick. Drop it. Nope, drop it. Yeah, those bully sticks get real gross after they chew them that much. Good boy. So just to show you how this goes, I'll start by just having him ring the bell out of my hands. Okay, good boy. Very simple. Okay, good boy. And I don't care how loud it is at this phase. Come here. Now I'm going to sit him up. Come here. It's easier when they're sitting. And I'll just hold these bells. I'm going to, all my attention's on them. Okay, good boy. Just making it fun to ring them. Okay, good boy. Once he's doing that out of my hand, then I'll come over to the door. And same thing. Okay, good boy, outside. Okay, outside, good boy. Okay, outside, good boy. So now I'm going to take him out. Okay, outside, good boy. And I expect him to wait at the doorway. Okay. Okay. So now doing it at your house, I would then turn around, have him ring the bell, go back outside. So as long as you're really consistent with the house training, making sure that you do this little exercise, give him adequate breaks, and give him 100% supervision, shouldn't have any issues. So now the last part we're going to talk about is leash work. So we do take him on two types of walks. The first is a long lead walk, and the second is our attention walk. When he's on that long lead, he's allowed to be a dog. Just have him running around, sniffing, playing. It's great for his mental health. After you work on this a lot and he's responding really well to you, then you can then allow him off leash during these walks. But for the first while, always on the long lead. Work on that come command. Work on him checking in and staying close. Also, I like to do these walks where there's not any danger, imminent danger. So up in the mountains, down by the river, stuff like that. The second one is our attention walk. And during that walk, I expect him to be in a loose heel. I don't have a real strict heel when we're on this because I still want it to be enjoyable, and he is still young. He's to the point where we have started to apply pressure, and so when he gets really distracted, I can put on a cinch collar, or you could also collar condition him like I mentioned earlier. But when we do this, we have two different types of commands, or two different commands. The first is let's go, just signifying that we're moving, and the other one is easy if he starts to pull. So we'll go outside and I will show you that walk, and that will conclude our demonstration. Let's go. So when I start this type of walk, I do like to have him sit first, and that's just so I get his attention on me. He's not focused on other things out and about. And then when I start, I'll tell him let's go. And I do expect him to stay close to me. I don't care if he's a step ahead, but I don't want him pulling, ever. So I'll just tell him, let's go. I just want him next to me. Let's go. When I make corners, I will tell him, let's go. And then I can just direct him with a little bit of leash pressure. Go. So if he gets too far out to the side, just give him a little pressure. If he comes inside to me, I can direct him with my knee. Then when I stop, okay, I expect him to put his attention back on me and sit. Let's go. Sit. Good boy. If you have any questions, please let Jane or Cindy know. Thanks. Bye.